The fluorescent lights in the science lab buzzed quietly as 15-year-old Tommy sat hunched over his workbench in the back corner. Around him, scattered like puzzle pieces, were circuit boards, tangled wires, old computer parts, and what most people would call junk. His fingers worked carefully, connecting a small sensor to a makeshift antenna he'd built from materials he found in his dad's garage. It was after school, and most students had already left. But Tommy stayed behind almost every day now, working on something that had taken over his thoughts for months. He was building a miniature satellite tracking system, not the kind of project you'd expect from a high school sophomore, not the kind of thing his classmates understood at all. "Still playing with your space garbage?" Someone called out from across the lab. Tommy didn't look up. He recognized the voice. It was Brad, one of the popular kids who always had something clever to say. A few other students laughed as they packed up their volcano models and solar system dioramas. Tommy's face felt hot, but he kept his eyes on his work. This happened almost every day. The teasing, the jokes, the looks that said he was wasting his time on something impossible. But he couldn't stop. Wouldn't stop. Because every time he looked up at the night sky, he saw something different than everyone else. He saw possibility. His science teacher, Mr. Howard, walked over and peered at the messy collection of electronics. The older man scratched his gray beard, a habit he had when he was thinking hard about something. "Tommy, you've been at this for 3 months now," Mr. Howard said gently. "The science fair is in 2 weeks. Are you sure this is going to work?" Tommy finally looked up. His eyes were tired but determined. "It has to work, Mr. Howard. I've tested every component separately. The theory is sound. I just need to get all the pieces talking to each other." Mr. Howard sighed. He admired the boy's dedication, but he also worried. The other students had simple, proven projects, things that would definitely work when the judges came around. Tommy was attempting something that professional engineers would find challenging, with spare parts, in a high school lab. "What exactly is this supposed to do again?" Mr. Howard asked, though Tommy had explained it a dozen times. Tommy's face lit up the way it always did when someone actually asked about his project. "Okay, so there's tons of space debris orbiting Earth, right? Old satellites, pieces of rockets, even paint chips. They're traveling at thousands of miles per hour. If they hit something important, like the International Space Station, it could be catastrophic." He pointed to different parts of his creation as he continued. "My system uses radio signals to track debris patterns. Most tracking systems cost millions of dollars and use huge ground stations. But I figured out a way to do it with low-cost components. It won't be as powerful as NASA's systems, but it proves the concept could work on a smaller scale. Maybe for small satellite operators or universities that can't afford the expensive equipment." Mr. Howard nodded slowly. It was actually brilliant in theory. But theory and reality were two very different things, especially in a high school science lab. "Just have a backup plan, okay?" the teacher said before heading to his office. Tommy turned back to his project. Backup plan. Everyone kept talking about backup plans. But he didn't want a backup. He wanted this to work. He needed it to work. The truth was, space had been his escape for as long as he could remember. When he was 7 years old, his mom had taken him to the planetarium during a rough patch in their family life. His parents were fighting a lot back then. Money was tight. The apartment walls were thin, and he could hear every argument. But at the planetarium, under that dome of stars, everything else faded away. The narrator talked about galaxies millions of light years away, about black holes and nebulas and the possibility of other worlds. For the first time in months, Tommy forgot about the yelling, the stress, the uncertainty of everything at home. From that day on, he was hooked. He devoured every book about space he could find at the library. He watched documentaries until late at night. He learned about the scientists and engineers who made space exploration possible. People like Katherine Johnson, who calculated the trajectories for moon missions, like Gene Kranz, who helped bring Apollo 13 home safely. These weren't superheroes with magic powers. They were real people who solved impossible problems with their minds. Tommy wanted to be like them. He wanted to contribute something real to space exploration. But how could a kid from a regular family in a regular town with no special connections possibly do that? The answer came to him during a boring math class one day. Start small. Start now. Build something real, even if it's imperfect. So he started collecting parts. His uncle worked at an electronics recycling center, and saved him circuit boards and old components. He mowed lawns to buy the few new parts he needed. He taught himself programming from free online courses. Night after night, weekend after weekend, he worked. His classmates didn't understand. To them, high school was about fitting in, being cool, going to parties. Tommy went to those things sometimes, but his heart wasn't in it. At parties, he felt like an alien, but in his garage workshop, surrounded by wires and possibilities, he felt like himself. "Hey, space boy, you gonna launch yourself to Mars?" Another voice interrupted his thoughts. This time it was Stephanie and her friends, giggling as they walked past. "Maybe you can visit your alien family." Tommy's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Words never helped in these situations. They'd just twist whatever he said into another joke. Better to stay silent. Better to let his work speak for itself. Except his work couldn't speak yet. That was the problem. He was running out of time, and he still couldn't get the tracking algorithm to work properly. The system would detect signals, but it couldn't process them fast enough to be useful. There was a bottleneck somewhere in his code, and he couldn't figure out where. That night, Tommy stayed in the lab until the janitor came by at 8 o'clock. "Time to go home, kid," the janitor said kindly. He'd seen Tommy there many nights. "This thing gonna fly or what?" "I hope so," Tommy said, carefully unplugging his equipment. "I really hope so." The walk home was cold. November in their town meant early darkness and bitter wind. Tommy pulled his jacket tighter and thought about the science fair. What would happen if his project failed? Would everyone laugh? Would Mr. Howard regret letting him attempt something so ambitious? Worse than that, what would he tell himself? He'd poured everything into this project. His time, his money, his dreams. If it failed publicly in front of judges and classmates and parents, could he handle that? His phone buzzed. A text from his mom asking when he'd be home. He texted back that he was on his way, then looked up at the sky. It was a clear night. Stars dotted the darkness like pinpricks in black fabric. Somewhere up there, satellites were orbiting. Space stations housed astronauts. Telescopes peered into the depths of the universe. And down here, a 15-year-old kid was trying to build something that mattered. 2 weeks, Tommy whispered to himself. "I've got 2 weeks to make this work." He didn't know it then, but those 2 weeks would change everything. Not in the way he expected. Not even close. Because sometimes the path to success isn't a straight line. Sometimes it winds through failure and humiliation before it reaches anywhere worth going. Tommy walked home under those stars, his mind already racing with new ideas, new solutions, new possibilities. The laughter of his classmates echoed in his memory, but it was getting quieter, being replaced by something stronger. Determination. The gymnasium smelled like floor wax and nervous energy. Tommy pushed his cart through the double doors and his stomach dropped. The regional science fair had transformed the space into something that looked like a professional convention. Rows of tables stretched across the polished floor, each one displaying a project more impressive than the last. To his left, a girl had built a working model of a water purification system with clear tubes and perfectly labeled components. Everything was mounted on a professionally printed board with glossy photos and graphs. To his right, someone had created an artificial intelligence program that played chess, demonstrated on a sleek laptop with a custom interface. And then there was Tommy's project. He looked down at his cart. The tracking system sat in a cardboard box, held together with duct tape and hope. Wires still hung out in places. His display board was handmade, with printed papers glued onto poster board because he couldn't afford the professional mounting service. One corner was already peeling up, Tommy. Mr. Howard appeared beside him, carrying a coffee and looking stressed. "Table 17 all the way in the back corner. Let's get you set up." As they wheeled the cart across the gym, Tommy noticed heads turning, not in admiration. In confusion. Maybe pity. His project looked like something from a junkyard compared to everything else here. He'd known his budget was limited, but he hadn't realized how much that would show. "Listen," Mr. Howard said quietly as they reached the table. "I know this looks intimidating, but remember the judges care about the science, not how pretty things look. You've got solid research here. You've got innovation. Just explain it clearly." Tommy nodded, but his confidence was cracking. He started unplugging his components and setting them up. The small monitor he'd borrowed from his uncle's recycling center. The homemade antenna array. The control unit he'd assembled from salvaged circuit boards. Each piece told a story of late nights and creative problem solving, but together they just looked messy. At the next table, a boy named Kevin was setting up a project about renewable energy. Kevin's dad was an engineer at a tech company, and it showed. Everything was color-coordinated. His graphs were printed on what looked like professional presentation materials. His actual project sat on a custom-built platform with LED lighting. Rough setup? Kevin asked, glancing over. He didn't sound mean exactly. More like he was genuinely surprised that Tommy had shown up with something so crude. It works, Tommy said defensively. That's what matters, right? Sure, man, absolutely. Kevin turned back to his own project, and Tommy caught him exchanging a look with his dad. That look said everything. The morning dragged on. Parents and students filled the gymnasium, walking between tables and asking questions. Tommy explained his debris tracking system to anyone who stopped, but most people didn't. They'd glance at his setup, see the tangled wires and makeshift components, and keep walking toward the shinier projects. One woman actually laughed. She tried to hide it with a cough, but Tommy heard it, felt it like a punch to the gut. By lunchtime, he'd talked to maybe 8 people, while Kevin next door had a constant crowd. Tommy ate his sandwich alone at his table, watching families take photos with other projects. His parents couldn't make it until later. His dad had to work, and his mom was covering an extra shift. They'd promised to come for the awards ceremony in the evening. Attention participants, a voice boomed over the loudspeaker. Judging will begin in 30 minutes. Please ensure your projects are ready for demonstration. Tommy's heart rate picked up. This was it, the moment everything either came together or fell apart. He ran through his checklist one more time. Power supply check, antenna connections check, monitor display check. He'd practiced his presentation hundreds of times in his garage. He knew every word, every gesture, every response to potential questions. The judges appeared like a wave moving through the gym. 3 of them, clipboards in hand, moving from table to table. Tommy watched them approach, his palms sweating. A woman in her 50s with glasses, a younger man in a university polo shirt, an older gentleman who looked like he'd been teaching science since dinosaurs roamed the earth. They stopped at Kevin's table first. Tommy tried not to listen, but he couldn't help it. Kevin's presentation was smooth, confident. His renewable energy project lit up perfectly on cue. The judges nodded, asked questions, made notes. They spent almost 10 minutes there. Then they moved to Tommy's table. Hello, the woman said, smiling politely but already looking tired. It was late in the day and they'd seen dozens of projects. What do you have for us? Tommy took a deep breath. My project is a low-cost satellite debris tracking system. As you know, there are millions of pieces of debris orbiting Earth, and they pose a serious threat to active satellites and spacecraft. Current tracking systems are expensive and primarily operated by government agencies. My system demonstrates that debris tracking could be done with accessible technology. The judges looked at his setup. Tommy could see the skepticism in their eyes, but he pressed on. I'll demonstrate how it works. He powered on the system. The monitor flickered to life, showing the interface he'd coded. The antenna array picks up radio signals reflected off debris in low Earth orbit. The algorithm processes these signals to determine approximate position and trajectory. He clicked through screens, showing the math behind his calculations. The signal processing diagrams, the predicted accuracy rates. The younger judge leaned in, looking interested now. Interesting approach, the man said.
Can you show us real-time tracking?
This was the moment. Tommy had practiced this demonstration countless times. He activated the tracking sequence. The program started receiving data. Numbers began populating the screen. So far, so good. Then nothing. The screen froze. Tommy's heart stopped. No. Not now. Not here. He clicked the mouse. Nothing. He checked the connections. Everything looked fine. He restarted the program. The screen went black, complete system failure. It was working this morning, Tommy stammered. His face felt like it was on fire. The connection must have... He frantically checked wires, jiggled connections, pressed buttons. The monitor stayed black. Behind him, he could hear whispers. Giggles from students at nearby tables. This was his nightmare coming true in real time. It's okay, the older judge said, not unkindly. Why don't you just explain the theory behind it? Tommy tried. He really did. He talked about orbital mechanics, signal processing, the algorithms he'd developed. But his voice was shaking. His hands trembled as he pointed to diagrams on his display board. The judges listened politely, but he could see they were ready to move on. The demonstration failure had killed any chance of them taking him seriously. Very ambitious project, the woman said, making notes. Perhaps a bit too ambitious for the available resources. But we appreciate the creativity. And just like that, they were gone, moving to the next table. The whole evaluation had taken maybe 5 minutes. Tommy stood there staring at his dead monitor, fighting back tears. "Dude, that was rough," someone whispered from a nearby table. Not cruel, just stating fact. It had been rough. It had been a disaster. Tommy sat down hard in his chair. He wanted to pack up and leave right then. Just wheel his broken project out to the parking lot and disappear. But the award ceremony wasn't until 6 o'clock. His parents were coming. He couldn't leave. The afternoon was torture. He sat at his table while other students celebrated their demonstrations, while parents congratulated their kids, while everyone else seemed to be part of a success story he wasn't included in. Around 5 o'clock, his parents arrived. His mom hugged him immediately. "How'd it go, sweetheart?" "Not great," Tommy admitted. The system crashed during the demonstration. His dad examined the setup. "Show me what happened." They spent 20 minutes troubleshooting, but it was pointless. The damage was done. Even if they got it working now, the judges had already made their decisions. "I'm sorry, kiddo," his dad said. "I know how hard you worked on this." The awards ceremony started at 6:30. Everyone gathered at the front of the gymnasium where a small stage had been set up. The organizers gave speeches about the importance of science education. The judges praised all the participants for their hard work and dedication. Then came the awards. Third place went to a project about plant growth in music. Second place went to Kevin's renewable energy system. No surprise there. First place went to the water purification project. Also no surprise Tommy didn't place, didn't even get an honorable mention. As families took photos with winners and gathered up their projects to leave, Tommy slowly packed his equipment back into the cardboard box. His mom helped him wrap the antenna array in bubble wrap. His dad carefully disconnected the monitor. "You know what?" his mom said softly. "I'm proud of you anyway. You tried something really difficult. That takes guts." Tommy nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He appreciated her words, but they didn't make the failure hurt any less. Walking to the parking lot, pushing his cart through the cold November evening, Tommy passed 2 students from his school, Brad and Stephanie, the ones who always had jokes at his expense. "Hey, Tommy," Brad called out. "How'd your space junk do?" "He didn't place," Stephanie said before Tommy could answer. "Guess NASA won't be calling anytime soon, huh?" They laughed and walked away, their voices fading into the parking lot noise. Tommy loaded his project into the back of his dad's truck. The box that had held so many hopes now just looked like what it was, a collection of old electronics that didn't work when it mattered most. The drive home was quiet. His parents didn't push him to talk, and he was grateful for that. He stared out the window at the darkening sky, watching streetlights blur past. Back home, Tommy carried the box straight to the garage and set it on his workbench. He didn't want to look at it anymore. Didn't want to think about the 3 months he'd spent building it, the money he'd scraped together, the late nights and early mornings. All for nothing. He went to his room and lay on his bed still in his clothes. His phone buzzed with texts from well-meaning classmates. "Sorry about today. Better luck next time." He ignored them all. Outside his window, stars began appearing in the clear night sky. Usually seeing them filled Tommy with wonder and possibility. Tonight, they just reminded him of how far away his dreams really were, how impossible everything seemed, how maybe everyone had been right to laugh. 3 months passed like a fog. Tommy went to school, did his homework, and tried to forget about the science fair. His project sat in the garage gathering dust. He couldn't bring himself to throw it away, but he couldn't look at it either. His friends noticed the change. He was quieter in class, less enthusiastic about things. The spark that used to light up his face when someone mentioned space seemed to have dimmed. Even Mr. Howard pulled him aside one day to ask if he was okay. "I'm fine," Tommy lied. "Just busy with other stuff." But he wasn't fine. The failure at the science fair had done something to his confidence. That little voice in his head that said maybe you're not good enough had gotten louder. Maybe everyone had been right. Maybe he'd been foolish to think a kid from a regular town with salvaged parts could do anything meaningful in science. Then, On a Tuesday afternoon in late February, something changed. Tommy was sprawling on his bed, scrolling through his phone without really looking at anything. His homework lay untouched on his desk. He was about to turn on a video game when he noticed an email notification. The sender name made his heart skip. Dr. Rachel Morrison, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Tommy sat up so fast he almost dropped his phone. His hand started shaking. This had to be spam. Some kind of scam email. NASA didn't send emails to random high school kids. He almost deleted it without opening it, but curiosity won. He tapped the email open and started reading. Dear Tommy, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Dr. Rachel Morrison, and I'm a senior engineer at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. A colleague shared your technical post about low-cost debris tracking systems on the AmateurSat forum. I've reviewed your documentation and diagrams with great interest. Tommy's breath caught in his throat. The forum. He'd forgotten about that. 2 weeks after the science fair, feeling bitter and defeated, he'd written up a detailed technical explanation of his project and posted it on an online forum for space enthusiasts. He'd included all his calculations, his coding approach, his design philosophy, and an honest assessment of what worked and what didn't. He figured if his project was a failure anyway, at least someone might learn from his mistakes. He kept reading. Your approach to signal processing is innovative, particularly given the resource constraints you were working under. The way you adapted commercial radio components for orbital tracking shows genuine engineering creativity. I'm particularly impressed by your modular code architecture, which could actually be scaled for more robust applications. Tommy had to read that paragraph 3 times. A NASA engineer was saying his work was innovative, creative, could be scaled. I'd like to discuss your project in more detail if you're interested. Would you be available for a video call this week? I have some questions about your algorithm design, and I think you might be interested in some of the work we're doing here at JPL. The email ended with her contact information and a signature that confirmed this was real. Dr. Rachel Morrison, Senior Systems Engineer, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, California Institute of Technology. Tommy stared at his phone screen until his eyes started to water. Then he let out a sound that was half laugh, half shout. His mom came running. What happened? Are you okay? NASA, Tommy practically screamed. Mom, NASA emailed me. A real engineer from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory wants to talk about my project. His mom grabbed the phone and read the email herself, her eyes getting wider with each line. Oh my God, Tommy, oh my God. His dad came home from work an hour later to find them both still in shock, reading and rereading the email like it might disappear. That night, Tommy couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, his mind racing. NASA wanted to talk to him about his failed science fair project, the thing everyone had laughed at. The video call was scheduled for Thursday evening. Tommy spent every spare moment preparing. He fixed the bugs that had caused his system to crash at the science fair. He created new documentation, showing how the project could be improved with better components. He practiced explaining his work, anticipating questions a NASA engineer might ask. Thursday evening arrived. Tommy set up his laptop in the garage, his project on the workbench behind him. At exactly 6 o'clock Pacific time, he clicked the video call link. A woman appeared on screen. She was maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and kind eyes behind stylish glasses. The wall behind her showed a poster of Mars and what looked like mission patches from various space programs. Tommy, great to meet you, Dr. Morrison said, smiling warmly. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me. I have to tell you, your forum post caught the attention of our whole team. We've been passing it around the office. Really? Tommy's voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat. I mean, that's amazing. I wasn't sure anyone would even read it. Are you kidding? Low-cost space technology is a huge area of interest right now. Small satellite operators, universities, even developing nations are looking for ways to participate in space activities without massive budgets. Your approach to the debris tracking problem is exactly the kind of creative thinking we need more of. They talked for over an hour. Dr. Morrison asked detailed questions about his code, his hardware choices, his testing methodology. Tommy answered. And with each question, his confidence grew. She wasn't treating him like a kid with a cute hobby. She was treating him like a fellow engineer, someone whose ideas mattered. I have to ask, Dr. Morrison said at one point, why didn't this project do well at your science fair? The documentation you posted shows solid work. Tommy felt his face get hot. It crashed during the demonstration. System failure right in front of the judges. Everything just went black. Dr. Morrison nodded knowingly. Been there. My first major presentation at NASA. The projector died halfway through. Murphy's Law, right? But you know what separated you from most people? You didn't just walk away from it. You debugged it, documented it, and shared what you learned. That's what real engineers do. Those words hit Tommy like a warm wave. Real engineers. She'd called him a real engineer. Listen, Dr. Morrison continued. NASA is hosting a youth innovation showcase in Houston this summer. It's a week-long program where we bring in promising young people interested in aerospace to present their projects, attend workshops, and meet with engineers and astronauts. Would you be interested in participating? Tommy's mouth went dry. You want me to present my project? At NASA? Absolutely. We'll provide travel assistance if needed. And the program includes tours of Johnson Space Center, hands-on workshops, and a formal presentation day where you'd share your work with NASA personnel and other participants. Yes, definitely yes. Dr. Morrison laughed. Great. I'll send you the formal invitation and all the details. Tommy, I want you to know something. What you built in your garage with limited resources shows the exact kind of problem-solving mindset that put humans on the moon. Don't let one bad demonstration day convince you otherwise. After the call ended, Tommy sat in the garage for a long time, just staring at his project. The same cardboard box, the same tangled wires, the same salvaged components. But somehow it looked different now. Not like junk, like possibility. His phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Howard. I hear NASA reached out to you. I knew that project was special. Proud of you, Tommy. Word had gotten around school by Friday. Tommy walked into science class to find Mr. Howard had written on the board, "Congratulations to Tommy on his NASA invitation." Some classmates clapped. Others looked confused. Kevin, the kid with the renewable energy project that had won second place, came up to him. Dude, that's incredible. How did NASA even find out about your project? Tommy explained about the forum post, about Dr. Morrison, about the invitation to Houston. That's so cool, Kevin said, and he sounded genuinely happy for him. I got a small scholarship from the science fair, but NASA? That's another level. Not everyone was thrilled. Brad made a snide comment in the hallway about pity invitations, but it bounced off Tommy like water off glass. Dr. Morrison's words echoed in his head. Real engineers don't give pity invitations. Real engineers recognize good work. Over the next few weeks, Tommy received a formal invitation packet from NASA. The program was a week long in July. 30 young innovators from across the country would participate. There would be workshops on programming, engineering, and design thinking, tours of mission control and training facilities, and on the last day, a formal showcase where each participant would present their project to NASA personnel, including administrators and active astronauts. The packet also included a permission form for his parents and information about travel reimbursement. Tommy's family didn't have money for plane tickets, but NASA covered everything. Flights, accommodation, meals. They wanted him there. His mom cried when she signed the permission form. I'm so proud of you, baby. So proud. His dad helped him create a better display board for the presentation. Professional this time, printed at a copy shop. They rebuilt some of the project components together, upgrading where they could with a small budget. Tommy's boss at his part-time job at the grocery store even donated some money toward new materials. My nephew wants to be an astronaut, his boss said.
Kids like you give me hope for the future.
Go show them what you can do. The months until July felt both endless and too short. Tommy worked on his project every day, improving it bit by bit. He practiced his presentation until he could do it in his sleep. He read everything he could find about NASA's current missions and priorities. He also kept posting on the forum. Other amateur space enthusiasts asked questions about his tracking system. Some offered suggestions for improvements. One retired engineer in Australia even sent him some better antenna components for free. A whole community Tommy didn't know existed was cheering him on. In late June, Dr. Morrison emailed again with more details about the program. She mentioned that the presentations would be judged and there would be prizes. But she added something that stuck with Tommy. Remember, you're already a winner for being selected. This isn't about competition. It's about celebrating young innovators and helping you connect with the space community. The night before his flight to Houston, Tommy couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, his suitcase packed by the door, his project carefully boxed up and ready to check his luggage. His mind spun with possibilities and fears. What if he messed up again? What if the other participants were way more advanced? What if he didn't belong there? But then he thought about Dr. Morrison's words, about the forum community that had supported him, about Mr. Howard's encouragement, about his parents who believed in him even when his project failed. He thought about that kid who used to sit in the back of the science lab, mocked and dismissed, working on something everyone said was impossible. That kid was about to walk into NASA headquarters, and somehow, against all odds, he belonged there. The Houston heat hit Tommy like a wall when he stepped off the plane. Even at 9 in the morning, the air was thick and humid, completely different from the mild weather back home. He pulled his carry-on bag through the airport, following signs to baggage claim, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. A woman in a NASA polo shirt stood near the baggage carousel, holding a sign that read, "Youth Innovation Showcase Participants." Tommy walked over, along with 3 other teenagers who looked just as nervous as he felt. "Welcome to Houston," the woman said cheerfully. "I'm Patricia, one of the program coordinators. We're waiting for a few more participants, then we'll head to Johnson Space Center together." As more teenagers arrived, Tommy looked around at his fellow participants. There was a girl about his age carefully protecting what looked like a robotics project. A tall boy with glasses carried a laptop case covered in programming stickers. Another girl had a poster tube slung over her shoulder. Everyone looked smart. Everyone looked like they knew exactly what they were doing. Tommy suddenly felt very small. The van ride to Johnson Space Center took about 30 minutes. Patricia pointed out landmarks along the way, but Tommy barely heard her. His mind was racing. What if his project wasn't good enough? What if everyone else had better ideas, better execution, better everything? Then they turned a corner and there it was. The Johnson Space Center, the actual real NASA facility, giant buildings with the iconic NASA logo, signs pointing to mission control. In the distance, Tommy could see what looked like a life-sized shuttle replica. "Oh my God," someone whispered. Tommy realized it was him. They checked in at the visitor center, received badges with their names and Youth Innovation Showcase printed on them, and were escorted to a dormitory-style building where they'd be staying. Tommy had a roommate, a 16-year-old named Chris from Oregon, who'd built an app for tracking asteroids that might threaten Earth. "This is insane, right?" Chris said, unpacking his suitcase. "I keep thinking someone's going to realize there's been a mistake and send me home." Tommy laughed, relieved he wasn't the only one feeling that way. "Exactly. Like we're at NASA. Actual NASA." That evening there was an opening reception. All 30 participants gathered in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Space Center. NASA staff mingled with the teenagers, asking about their projects and making everyone feel welcome. Tommy spotted Dr. Morrison across the room and worked up the courage to approach her. "Tommy," she greeted him with a warm smile and a handshake. "You made it! How was the flight?" "Good, thanks. I can't believe I'm actually here. Believe it." "You earned it." She gestured around the room. "Everyone here brought something special. I'm really excited to see your presentation on Friday. The showcase. 4 days away. 4 days to prepare, to practice, to get this right." The week unfolded like a dream. Every morning started with workshops. Professional engineers taught them about systems thinking, project management, and presentation skills. They learned about NASA's current missions, from Mars rovers to deep space telescopes. They toured facilities that Tommy had only seen in documentaries, walking through mission control, standing in the actual room where flight controllers had guided Apollo missions and space shuttle launches. Tommy felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just history. This was a living, working place where real people solved impossible problems every single day, and those people had once been kids with dreams just like him. On Wednesday, they visited the training facility where astronauts prepared for missions. They saw the pool where astronauts practiced spacewalks in full gear. They toured a replica of the International Space Station. An actual astronaut, Commander Lisa Chen, spoke to them about her journey from engineering student to space station resident. "I grew up in a small town," Commander Chen said. "My high school didn't even have a physics teacher my senior year. But I loved space and I refused to let obstacles stop me. Every person in this room has that same spark, that same refusal to accept limitations. Hold on to that. After her talk, Tommy waited in line to ask her a question. When his turn came, his mouth went dry, but he pushed through. Commander Chen, I failed my science fair. My project crashed right in front of the judges. How do you deal with failure when you're working on something important? She looked at him thoughtfully. Failure is data. That's what my first mentor told me. Every failure teaches you something if you're willing to learn from it. The only real failure is giving up. She paused. What was your project? Debris tracking system. Low-cost approach. Her eyes lit up. Are you Tommy? Dr. Morrison mentioned you. That's brilliant work. And the fact that you debugged it and shared your findings publicly, that's the mark of a real scientist. Scientists who only share their successes aren't being honest about how science actually works. That conversation carried Tommy through the rest of the week. He practiced his presentation every evening in his dorm room while Chris worked on his own. They gave each other feedback, timing each other, asking tough questions to prepare for the judges. Thursday night, the night before presentations, Tommy barely slept. He went over his notes one more time, checked his equipment, made sure every connection was secure. He could not have another system failure, not here, not at NASA. Friday morning arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. The presentations were being held in a large auditorium. As participants set up their projects on tables around the perimeter, Tommy noticed the audience starting to arrive. NASA engineers, program administrators, and yes, astronauts. Real astronauts were going to watch him present. The format was like a science fair. Judges would circulate, spending about 10 minutes at each project. Participants would give their pitch, demonstrate their work, and answer questions. After all the evaluations, there would be an award ceremony. Tommy set up his tracking system on his assigned table. He'd rebuilt it over the past months with better components, but it was still humble compared to some of the projects around him. Next to him, a girl from California had a fully functional water recycling system with professional-grade sensors and a touchscreen interface. Across the aisle, someone had built a drone that could autonomously collect samples from hazardous environments. Everyone here was brilliant. The judges began their rounds. Tommy watched them evaluate other projects first, trying to gauge what they were looking for. They asked technical questions, but also seemed interested in the thinking behind each project. The challenges students had overcome, the real-world applications. Then they arrived at his table. 3 judges this time, including Dr. Morrison. She gave him an encouraging smile, then stepped back to let him present. Hello, Tommy began, his voice steadier than he expected. My name is Tommy, and I've developed a low-cost satellite debris tracking system. He launched into his presentation. Unlike at the regional science fair, he wasn't just reciting facts. He told a story. He explained why space debris matters, how current tracking systems work, and where he saw a gap that needed filling. He described his approach, the challenges he faced, and how he overcame them. The system failed at my school science fair, he said honestly. Complete crash during demonstration. But that failure taught me more than success would have. I debugged every component, rewrote parts of my code, and documented everything I learned. That's actually how Dr. Morrison found me. The judges leaned in, engaged. When he activated his demonstration, the system worked perfectly. The monitor displayed tracking data, showing orbital predictions based on signal analysis. The judges asked questions about his algorithm, his hardware choices, his future plans for the project. Have you considered open sourcing this? One judge asked. Universities and small satellite operators could really benefit from this approach. I have, Tommy said. I've already shared the basic framework on forums. I think technology like this should be accessible, not locked away. Dr. Morrison nodded approvingly. That's the spirit that drives innovation. After the judges moved on, Tommy let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. It had gone well. Really well. No crashes, no failures. He'd explained his work clearly and answered every question with confidence. But more than that, he'd enjoyed it. Standing there talking about his project with people who genuinely understood and appreciated the work felt incredible. Win or lose, this moment was already a victory. The evaluation period ended around 2 o'clock. Participants were given a break while the judges deliberated. Tommy and Chris went outside, sitting on a bench in the shade, both of them buzzing with nervous energy. Dude, your presentation was amazing, Chris said. The way you talked about learning from failure? That was powerful, thanks. Yours was great too. That asteroid tracking app could actually save lives someday. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people walk between buildings, going about their important NASA work. Tommy thought about how far he'd come. From that kid in the back of the science lab, mocked and dismissed, to here, Johnson Space Center, about to attend an awards ceremony in a NASA auditorium. Whatever happened next, no one could take this away from him. Participants, please return to the auditorium. A voice called over a loudspeaker. This was it. Awards time. Tommy's stomach did flips as he walked back inside. The auditorium was packed now. All the participants, their families who'd traveled to Houston, NASA staff, astronauts. The stage at the front had a podium and a screen showing the NASA logo. A distinguished-looking man in a suit walked to the podium. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Director James Patterson, and on behalf of NASA, I want to congratulate every young innovator here this week. What you've accomplished at your age is remarkable. He talked about the importance of nurturing young talent, about NASA's mission to inspire the next generation of explorers. Then he got to the awards. We're going to recognize outstanding achievement in several categories, but I want to be clear, everyone here is exceptional. Being selected for this program is an achievement in itself. They started with honorable mentions. 5 students received certificates and small scholarships for exemplary work. Tommy clapped enthusiastically for each one, genuinely happy for them. Now for our category awards, Director Patterson continued. 3rd place for overall innovation goes to... Tommy held his breath. Chris Nakamura from Oregon for his asteroid threat detection application. Chris practically floated to the stage. Tommy cheered loudly, proud of his new friend. Chris accepted his award, a trophy and a bigger scholarship, then returned to his seat beaming. 2nd place goes to... Tommy's hands were sweating. This was it. Either his name would be called or it wouldn't. Either way, he'd done his best. That's what mattered, right? Right? 2nd place was announced. A girl from Texas with an innovative solar panel design. She deserved it. Her project was incredible. Tommy clapped, though his heart was sinking. If he didn't place first, he didn't place at all. Director Patterson returned to the podium. And now for 1st place. This year's top honor goes to a project that exemplifies the very best of scientific thinking, not just for its technical merit, though that is significant, but for the journey behind it, for the resilience it represents, for the commitment to learning and sharing knowledge that defines great science. Tommy's heart hammered so hard he thought everyone could hear it. 1st place, along with a full scholarship to the NASA Space Grant Summer Program, and a mentorship opportunity with our engineering team, goes to Tommy Williams from Pennsylvania for his innovative low-cost debris tracking system. For a moment, Tommy didn't move, couldn't move. The words didn't seem real. His name, they'd called his name. At NASA. For 1st place, Chris grabbed his arm. Dude, that's you, go. Tommy stood on shaking legs and walked toward the stage. The applause was thunderous. He climbed the steps, and Director Patterson shook his hand firmly, handing him a trophy that felt surprisingly heavy. Dr. Morrison stood beside him, smiling like a proud parent. Tommy, Director Patterson said, gesturing to the microphone, would you like to say a few words? Tommy looked out at the audience. All these brilliant people, astronauts, engineers, his fellow participants who were all so talented, and in the back he spotted his parents. They'd driven 18 hours to be here for the award ceremony. His mom was crying. His dad was grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. Tommy stepped to the microphone. His hands trembled as he held the trophy. I don't really know what to say, he began, his voice echoing through the auditorium. A few months ago, this project was the biggest failure of my life. It crashed at my science fair. People laughed. I went home that night thinking maybe everyone was right. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe kids like me from regular towns don't get to do meaningful science, he paused, looking at the trophy in his hands. But then something happened. I shared my failure online. I documented what went wrong and what I learned. And Dr. Morrison saw it. She didn't see junk from a garage. She saw potential. She saw problem-solving and creativity. She saw a real engineer. Tommy looked up, finding Dr. Morrison in the crowd. That changed everything. Not because NASA contacted me, though that was amazing, but because someone I respected saw value in my work. That gave me the courage to keep going, to fix what was broken. To try again, his voice grew stronger. This award isn't just about the debris tracking system. It's about not giving up when things fail. It's about learning from mistakes instead of hiding them. It's about believing that your dreams are worth fighting for, even when nobody else believes yet. He glanced at the other participants. Everyone here has an incredible project. But more than that, everyone here has that fire. That refusal to accept that something's impossible just because it's hard. Please hold on to that. The world needs people like us. People who see problems and think, I can solve that, even when we don't have all the resources or support we need. Tommy took a breath. Thank you to NASA for this opportunity. Thank you to Dr. Morrison for taking a chance on a kid with a failed project. Thank you to Mr. Howard, my science teacher, who let me attempt something crazy. And thank you to my parents who drove 18 hours to be here because they've always believed I could reach for the stars. The applause was deafening. Tommy walked off the stage in a daze, clutching his trophy. People congratulated him, shook his hand, took photos, but all he could focus on was getting to his parents. When he reached them, his mom pulled him into a crushing hug. I'm so proud of you, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. So proud. His dad's eyes were wet too. You did it, kiddo. You really did it. The rest of the day blurred together. There was a reception with fancy snacks and more congratulations. Astronauts came up to talk to him about his project, treating him like a colleague rather than a kid. Other participants wanted to exchange contact information, talk about collaborating in the future. Dr. Morrison found him during the reception. So, Tommy, that summer mentorship program. It's 8 weeks at JPL in California. You'd work directly with our debris tracking team on real projects. Are you interested? Are you serious? Tommy's voice cracked. Of course I'm interested. Great, I'll send all the details to your parents. We can arrange housing, and there's a stipend to cover expenses. You'd be the youngest person in our program. But after this week, I have no doubts you can handle it. That evening, after the official events ended, Tommy sat outside the dormitory with Chris and a few other participants. They watched the sunset paint the Texas sky in shades of orange and pink, talking about their dreams for the future. I want to design spacecraft propulsion systems, Chris said. Get humans to Mars. I want to work on climate monitoring satellites, said Kelly, the girl with the solar panel project. Help us understand and protect our planet. What about you, Tommy? Someone asked. Tommy thought about it. I want to make space accessible. Not just for governments and billionaires, but for everyone. Universities, small countries, even high school kids with big dreams. I want to prove that you don't need millions of dollars to contribute to space exploration. You just need curiosity and determination. That's beautiful, man, Chris said quietly. The next day, Tommy's parents drove him home. The 18-hour journey felt different than any road trip before. The trophy sat carefully buckled in the back seat. Tommy kept looking at it, making sure it was real. On Monday, he returned to school. Word had spread fast. Local news had covered his NASA win. When he walked into Mr. Howard's class, everyone stood up and applauded. Even Brad and Stephanie clapped, though they looked uncomfortable doing it. Mr. Howard had decorated the classroom with congratulatory signs. Class, I want you all to learn something from Tommy's example. Success isn't about never failing. It's about what you do after failure. Tommy's project failed at our regional fair. But instead of giving up, he learned from it. He improved it. He shared his knowledge. And look where that led him. Later that week, Tommy was called to the principal's office. He walked there nervously, wondering if he'd done something wrong. Instead, he found the principal smiling. Tommy, the school board wants to feature you in our STEM program marketing. Show other students what's possible. Would you be willing to give a presentation at our next school assembly? Sure, Tommy said. But can I say something? Of course, don't just show my success. Show the failure too. Show that I didn't place at the science fair. Show that I got laughed at. Because kids need to know that failure isn't the end of the story. It's just a chapter.